Once upon a time, in a bustling kingdom nestled between rolling green hills and a sparkling sapphire sea, there lived a humble girl named Heiress. Heiress's days began before the sun rose, with the distant crowing of roosters and the soft whisper of the tide rolling in from the nearby shore. She would wake in her modest cottage, where cracked wooden beams held up a roof patched with moss and clay. Her first task each morning was to light the hearth, warming her small home against the morning chill, before venturing out to gather eggs from the few scrawny hens she kept in her backyard. Though her existence seemed meager to those around her, Heiress found comfort in routine and the quiet companionship of her aging dog, Bramble. The villagers, however, saw her only as the poor girl with patched clothes and dirty hands, and they rarely missed a chance to remind her of her lowly place. Children would jeer at her as she passed, mimicking her worn boots with exaggerated stomps, while merchants in the market gave her little respect, often short-changing her when she bartered for bread or wool. "A beggar girl like you should know her place," Lady Mirabelle would sneer whenever their paths crossed. The daughter of the local lord, Mirabelle embodied everything Heiress was not. She was beautiful in a cold, precise way, with golden hair always styled in elaborate braids and silk gowns that seemed untouched by dust or wear. But Heiress had learned long ago to endure such cruelty with quiet grace. She knew her worth lay not in coins or fine cloth but in the strength of her hands and the kindness of her heart. What no one in the village knew, not the sneering merchants, nor the gossiping milkmaids, nor the cruel schoolchildren, was that Heiress was no ordinary girl. She was, in fact, the lost heiress of the grandest fortune the kingdom had ever known. Many years before, Highwind Hall, a majestic estate perched on the cliffs above the village, had been home to her parents, Lord Ulrich and Lady Seraphina. They had ruled their lands with wisdom and compassion, beloved by all until a fateful stormy night when treachery struck. A trusted advisor, consumed by greed, orchestrated a plot that resulted in the manor's fiery destruction. In the chaos, the infant Heiress had been rescued by a loyal servant who fled with her into the night, raising her in secrecy and keeping her true identity hidden even from herself. As Heiress grew older, the servant, a kindly woman named Nessa, told her bedtime stories of a great manor, of a noble family lost to tragedy, and of a brave little girl who might one day reclaim her birthright. Heiress, thinking these were simply fairy tales, listened with wide-eyed wonder, never imagining that she herself was the heroine of these tales. When Nessa passed away, Heiress was left with nothing but her small cottage and a single locket, bearing the crest of Highwind Hall, a silver hawk in flight against a midnight blue background. Over the years, Heiress had often stared at the locket, tracing its design with her fingertips, wondering if there was more to her story than she knew. Life in the village was difficult, but Heiress found solace in nature. She knew every hidden grove and quiet stream in the surrounding woods, and she often escaped there to read or simply listen to the wind in the trees. Yet, there was always a deep ache within her, a sense of belonging to something more, though she could never name what it was. One fateful autumn morning, a royal decree arrived in the village. The king himself was to host a grand ball, inviting all eligible maidens from every corner of the land. Rumor had it that the prince sought a bride, and though Heiress knew she would never be welcome at such an event, the thought of seeing the royal palace, even from afar, stirred a wild hope within her. As the day of the ball approached, Lady Mirabelle and her entourage grew more vicious in their mockery. They made a game of listing all the reasons why Heiress could never attend, laughing as they imagined her arriving in rags and being thrown out by the guards. Yet, as fortune would have it, Heiress's life was about to change forever. On the eve of the ball, she was gathering firewood in the forest when she stumbled upon an elderly woman, cloaked in deep emerald velvet, with eyes that gleamed like polished amber. "Child," the woman said, her voice like the rustle of leaves, "you have a kind heart, and fate owes you a great debt." With a wave of her gnarled hand, the woman transformed Heiress's rags into a gown of shimmering silver, her worn boots into delicate glass slippers, and her tangled hair into a river of silk. "Go to the ball, dear one. But remember, not all treasures are made of gold, and not all hearts are as they seem." Thus, Heiress arrived at the palace, dazzling all who beheld her. Lady Mirabelle, in her vanity, failed to recognize the radiant girl who outshone even the grandest noblewomen. The prince himself was captivated, and as he danced with Elara, he saw in her eyes a depth of spirit and grace that he had never encountered before. But the night could not last forever. As midnight approached, Elara, mindful of the enchantment, fled the palace, leaving behind only a single glass slipper. The next day, the prince declared that he would marry the girl who fit the slipper. When the royal entourage arrived at the village, Lady Mirabelle pushed her way forward, confident that she alone deserved the prince's hand. But try as she might, her foot would not fit. Then came Elara's turn. The villagers scoffed, but when she slid her foot effortlessly into the slipper, gasps of shock echoed through the square. "Who are you?" Lady Mirabelle whispered, her face pale with disbelief. With quiet dignity, Elara removed the locket from around her neck, revealing the crest of her noble house. "I am Elara of Highwind Hall, daughter of Lord Auric and Lady Seraphina," she declared, her voice steady and clear. The truth broke over the village like a wave, washing away years of lies and cruelty. The prince, overjoyed, took Elara's hand and vowed to restore her family's honor and lands. Lady Mirabelle, shamed and humiliated, was left to ponder the consequences of her unkindness. In time, Elara became not only the prince's bride but a wise and compassionate ruler, known throughout the kingdom as the queen who never forgot where she came from. And though her palace was grand and her gowns were fine, she always kept her old cottage by the edge of the village, a reminder that true wealth lies not in riches, but in kindness, resilience, and the strength of a noble heart. And so, the poor girl who had once been laughed at became the beloved queen, proving to all that the value of a person is never measured by their appearance, but by the richness of their soul. And they lived happily ever after. But the story did not end there. For as Elara settled into her role as queen, she began to uncover secrets hidden deep within the walls of Highwind Hall, secrets of her parents' reign, of allies lost and enemies lurking in the shadows. The kingdom, though at peace, held silent tensions, and there were those who would see her fall. Elara's heart, though gentle, grew fierce with determination. She vowed to protect her people as her parents once had, and with the prince at her side, she embarked on a journey not just of love, but of redemption and justice. And so, the legend of the lost heiress became more than a fairy tale, it became the story of a queen who built her kingdom anew, stronger and kinder, with roots of resilience and flowers of hope, blooming eternal under her watchful care. The night of the ball was a whirlwind of enchantment and revelation. Elara, transformed by the mysterious woman in the forest, arrived at the palace with a heart full of trepidation and wonder. The grandeur of the ballroom, with its towering crystal chandeliers and walls adorned with tapestries of the kingdom's history, took her breath away. Yet, it was not the opulence that captivated her but the people, nobles and commoners alike, who danced and laughed under the soft glow of candlelight. The prince, a young man named Cedric, was immediately drawn to Elara. Unlike the other maidens vying for his attention, she carried herself with a quiet confidence, her eyes reflecting a depth of experience and kindness that intrigued him. As they danced, they spoke of their dreams, Elara of her love for the natural world and her longing for a place where she truly belonged, and Cedric of his desire to rule with fairness and compassion, to bridge the divide between the nobility and the common folk. When the clock struck midnight, Elara's heart sank. She knew the enchantment would not last, and she could not risk being discovered. With a hurried farewell, she fled the palace, leaving behind only a single glass slipper. The prince, desperate to find her, searched the ballroom in vain, clutching the slipper as a symbol of the mysterious girl who had captured his heart. The search and the revelation. The next day, the prince's decree sent ripples through the kingdom. Every maiden was to try on the glass slipper, and the one whose foot fit would be his bride. When the royal entourage arrived in Elara's village, the air was thick with anticipation. Lady Mirabelle, convinced of her own superiority, was the first to attempt the slipper, but her foot was too large. Other maidens tried and failed, their hopes dashed. Then came Elara's turn. The villagers, who had mocked her for years, watched in stunned silence as the slipper slid perfectly onto her foot. When she revealed the locket bearing the crest of Highwind Hall, the truth of her identity was undeniable. The prince, overjoyed, declared that he would not only marry her but also restore her family's honor and lands. Lady Mirabelle, humiliated and envious, retreated to her manor, her heart festering with resentment. She vowed to undermine Elara at every opportunity, even as the rest of the village began to see the girl they had once scorned in a new light. The restoration of Highwind Hall. With the prince's support, Elara returned to Highwind Hall, the estate that had once been her family's home. The manor, though in ruins, still stood as a testament to its former glory. Its crumbling walls and overgrown gardens held echoes of the past, and Elara felt a deep connection to the place, as though the very stones whispered her name. As restoration began, Elara took an active role in the process. She worked alongside the laborers, her hands calloused but her spirit unyielding. She insisted that the manor be rebuilt not as a symbol of opulence but as a beacon of hope and unity. The Grand Hall, once a place of feasts and revelry, was redesigned to host gatherings where nobles and commoners could come together to discuss the kingdom's future. The shadows of the past. As Elara settled into her new life, she began to uncover secrets hidden within Highwind Hall. In the library, she found letters and journals belonging to her parents, revealing their efforts to create a just and equitable society. She learned of their struggles against corrupt advisors and powerful enemies who sought to undermine their rule. One name stood out among the records: Lord Malvern, the trusted advisor who had orchestrated the fire that destroyed Highwind Hall and claimed her parents' lives. Though believed to be dead, rumors began to surface that Malvern had survived and was gathering allies in the shadows, plotting to reclaim the power he had lost. Elara, determined to protect her people, began to investigate. She discovered that Malvern had been working with a network of spies and mercenaries, sowing discord in the kingdom and preparing for a coup. With the prince's support, she rallied loyal allies, including a group of skilled knights and a wise old scholar who had once served her father. The battle for the kingdom. The final confrontation took place on the cliffs overlooking the Sapphire Sea. Malvern, his face twisted with hatred, confronted Elara, taunting her with the memory of her parents' deaths. But Elara, standing tall in her silver gown and with the locket of Highwind Hall around her neck, faced him with unwavering resolve. "You took my family from me," she said, her voice steady. "But you could not take my spirit. I will not let you destroy what they built." The battle that followed was fierce, but Elara's courage and the loyalty of her allies turned the tide. Malvern was defeated, his plans unraveling as the kingdom united against him. In the aftermath, Elara and Cedric worked tirelessly to heal the wounds of the past, forging a new era of peace and prosperity. The legacy of Queen Elara. Elara's reign became a golden age for the kingdom. She established schools and hospitals, ensuring that all citizens, regardless of their station, had access to education and care. She opened the gates of Highwind Hall to the people, hosting festivals and councils where voices from every corner of the land could be heard. Though she wore a crown, Elara never forgot her roots. She often visited her old cottage, now preserved as a symbol of her journey, and spent time with Bramble, her faithful dog, who had grown old but remained by her side. Years later, as she stood on the cliffs overlooking the sea, Elara reflected on her life. She had faced cruelty and hardship, but she had also found love, purpose, and a sense of belonging. Her story, once a tale of loss and resilience, had become a legend of hope and transformation. And so, the kingdom flourished under her watchful care, a testament to the power of kindness, courage, and the enduring strength of a noble heart. The legend of Queen Elara, the lost heiress who became a beloved ruler, was passed down through generations, inspiring all who heard it to believe in the possibility of a brighter tomorrow.